Class is in session.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Unlearn 16. Class is in session. Am I wearing a Letterman jacket right now? Yes. Is it a double Tim Hortons jacket? Again, yes. There's a point for that. This podcast is going to be focused on a comment I got from a TikTok and a Twitter post that I made. So in my TikTok, I went on and I did a lot of cool clothing transitions. And let's be honest, it was mostly to showcase my watch. But the point of the matter was this is that we get judged in society, everybody does differently on different levels by how we look. My students and I talk quite a bit on the fact that when you step into a room, the initial judgment, and whether you like it or not, whether it's right or it's wrong, the initial judgment is on your appearance. The secondary judgment's the way you speak. And third and distant in the third place category is what you bring to the table, how intelligent you are, and how you can do a job or change the world. So I did this TikTok, right? And for the most part, people love the comments. And as I'm sitting here in this Letterman jacket, there was all sorts of nuance to it that I really didn't get into. But let me let me start this podcast by giving you a comment. One of the comments that I got on here, I'm going to read it to you. It's from a person named Kim. Kim, how you doing? Thanks for being the focal point of my podcast. Here's what she says. I hear you, but location, location, location. Clothing and appearance are critical aspects to be taken seriously when conveying messages. Talking with clients and in being considered, and being considered for professional advancement in corporate environments. We cannot ignore that fact. Now, is she right? Yes, Kim's not wrong. But it was kind of the point of my video. The point of my video was we do give we give so much credibility, almost instantaneous credibility to people wearing the right suit, the right hair, the right makeup, the right heel, the right whatever. We give instantaneous credibility and we dismiss those that don't necessarily fulfill the aesthetic, the visual example of what we think the job needs, the group needs, the whatever needs. And society does this across the board. I do this. Let me be very, very honest. We all do this to some degree. It's not about whether we do it. It's about should we, and it's about what are we missing out and what do we lose when we do it. So first let's go down the dismissal track, because I think this stereotype and this type of prejudicial underpinning really does shape a lot of things. And everybody would love to say it doesn't exist, right? Everybody's colorblind. Nobody cares about sex. Nobody cares, blah, blah. But the funny part is the way you dress somehow is still a indicator, an acceptable level of discrimination. P.S. Everybody still discriminates on all those other factors. Most people are just lying when they say they don't. So, discrimination based on attire and a haircut and the type of makeup, that is seen as acceptable discrimination, right? They didn't dress for the job. They're not being the part, whatever the case may be. It's an acceptable level of discrimination. So when somebody walks in for that job and you see them, let's say, wearing a Letterman's jacket, Letterman? There's no Leatherman, Joanna. Letterman's jacket when they walk in, rather than a business suit, you go, oh, look at this punk kid. I don't care what their credentials are. I don't care what they have to say. I have already devalued them. To be honest, you might as well turn right back around and walk out. Here's the problem. When we do that, we are instantaneously discrediting and ignoring and excluding and marginalizing authentic, unique, interesting voices. Hear me out. This isn't a big diversity and equity ploy in the sense of a visual thing. Because I think you can have visual diversity, but not actually have any real diversity of thought and understanding and application. When diversity is important, it's not about putting the nice little picture up on your corporate boardroom and you have like one of each in the picture. That's not diversity. That is the appearance of diversity. Real diversity is talking about including people who think differently, who have different ideas, who aren't necessarily going to go along with the corporate or the party line. Why? Well, because that person brings a unique idea and perspective to the table that you might not take. You might not go, boom, your ideas are the best. But, I promise you this. If you figure out what they're bringing to the table, what value it has, I promise you it will make your idea better if you can figure out how to how to combat theirs, or how their idea is good or how whatever the case may be. Everything gets better with that kind of diversity. Is it harder? Yeah. 100%. Does it take longer? Absolutely. Is it arduous? Is it frustrating? Yes, yes, and more yeses. But do you get somewhere better? I'm going to say absolutely. And proof of that are some of the most successful companies in the world, right? Proof of that is understanding if you just want quote unquote worker bees, cool. Then you can put them in a little uniform and you can march them out and they can be your Henry Ford factory worker A, but we no longer live in that world. If you're building your company based on an assembly line format in North America, you are doing yourself an injustice. You will fail. Because, like everybody already says, we don't have manufacturing up in here anymore. It's all been shifted. We are supposed to be, and we are building companies and we are building entities that are supposed to be the intellectual, the innovative ground floor of everything else that transpires. And the only way we can be innovative is by having different thought processes. And that goes for me, right? As an educator, I don't want 20 teachers like me. They should all have a good enough haircut, but I don't want 20 teachers like me. And here's why. Just because the way that I teach works best for me and I think it has value and I think I can argue the way that I teach has value, it does not make the only way to teach. It does not necessarily make the best way to teach, and it sure as hell doesn't get at every kid the way I want education to get at every kid. I also think this. If a student associates with a different teaching strategy more, they step into my class, I don't like the way Joanna teaches, I'm going to go back to so-and-so's class. Whoa, 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 whoa. Pull in the reins. Here's why. As a student, it's not just your job to learn more information. It's your job to learn how to be in imperfect situations with bosses and teachers and coworkers and classmates you don't like, you don't agree with, you don't necessarily buy into, but you need to figure out how you can be effective in it, how you can take stuff out of it, and how you can make the best of. That's the education. Forget history for a second. That's the education. So when we expand this to a bigger picture, it only makes sense that we loosen the restraint on the aesthetics of a person. But here's why we can't. Because we've grown up and it's been put in our head that somehow the way we dress denotes respect. The way we dress denotes respect for ourselves, respect for the environment that we are in, and respect for the people that we share it with. I think that is utter garbage. You want to go back to like politics in the 1800s? What respect? Half of the prime ministers of our country were absolutely hammered for the duration of their leadership. Where's the respect? Thank God they were wearing those little white hair looking things. Where's the respect? Where's the respect when they lie? Where's the respect when they cheat? Where's the respect? You put a suit and tie on somebody It doesn't denote respect. What it does is it creates the illusion of professionalism. It creates the illusion of respect. It creates so many illusions that the wool gets pulled over people's eyes consistently as those individuals get away with more and more and more and more and more. Why? Because you did a Windsor knot, whatever the hell that is. So, not only are we excluding that diversity, when we exclude that diversity, we do poorly. We do less than. I'm not saying society doesn't do well. And a lot of people are like, Joanna, that's the way it's always been done. Well, maybe if it wasn't always done like that, we'd be further ahead. Why is it that everybody who is genius level doesn't fit into our little cookie cutter molds? Why is that? Why do they all leave school? Why do they all not fit in a corporate environment? We are purposefully creating conformity. And by doing so, we are excluding people and their genius. Now, we have to have some commonalities. I get it. We have to have common courtesies. We have to have consistent rules that we all abide. The law is one, both criminal and civil, but also there should be some sort of cultural norms that we all jump into. But does dress have to be one of them? What good is that serving? Objectively, not theoretically, not emotionally. What good does it serve if I wore a three-piece suit rather than a Letterman jacket? Look, I can't stop saying Leatherman jacket. Rather than a Letterman jacket when I step into the courtroom and argue for my client. What are we doing there? But the diversity of thought that is expressed with what we wear might be. Now, as I went through that TikTok and I really think about it, and I'm saying clothing doesn't matter, but obviously clothing matters to me. I get it is a little hypocritical. Clothing matters to me. It's an expression of pieces of me. That's why I have so many different sort of types of clothes that I want to step into because I feel like A, they look good, B, they're an expression of who I am at that time in that place. I think it looks good. That's it. That's it. So the reality of the fact that clothing matters to me because it's something I get to control that represents sort of what I like in that time and in that space, but I sure as hell doesn't think that it represents character, that it represents work ethic, that it represents professionalism or lack thereof. It doesn't represent any of those things. It's art. That's what clothes are. That's what they can be. It is an aspect of your culture and sometimes a deviance from the common culture that is put in front of you. So, again, a Letterman's jacket doesn't change who I am, what I do, what I have to say. It just changes somebody's possible perception of who I am and what I'm going to say. Well, there's the problem. And those kind of stereotypes serve us none. Those kind of stereotypes limit our growth. They limit our innovation. They limit our commonality. They limit our understanding of each other. You have so many people on the right screaming individuality, but heaven forbid somebody walks into the House of Representatives wearing a t-shirt. What? I thought you guys were team individual. No, team free speech. No, team freedom of identity. And no, you're only all of those things if you fit into the narrow scope of what we're demanding today. Now, I heard this TikTok podcast and they were talking about architecture and how everybody hates the architecture of the 20th century, 21st century. It's so ugly, it's awful. But look back in the 1600s or the 1700s, that was beautiful. Look what they could do. Do you know what they talked about their architecture back in the 1700s? They thought it was garbage. They thought it was dark and dank and overdone. And they had the very similar discussions that we're having today. Want to know why? Because architecture is art. It's an expression of who that person and that time period are. And when art gets expressed in the time in which it's done, it's very, very, very rarely accepted. It's very rarely looked upon as being, oh, it's beautiful, it's magnificent. No, no, no. We got to wait 100 years to call it that. Why? Because the human brain needs a minute, apparently about 100 years, to catch up to the artist, to catch up to the true, authentic expression of individuality, of emotion, of content, of character. We need a minute. So we take our time. So let's start addressing that now. I don't know if we can change our instantaneous, reactions. Stereotype and prejudice really is jammed in there, and I think it's jammed in there in a lot of ways, but we can acknowledge it. Wouldn't it be lovely if we could all say, well, this is what I thought of you right off the bat. Why is that? Let's talk about that. Let me acknowledge that. Let me acknowledge that in my brain and then push it to the side in which it belongs, because it's utter garbage of a broken mentality based on nothing significant. Now, flip to the other side. Let's say I was wearing a really nice jacket, longer hair, put on a little bit of makeup, because not too much, little high heel, but not too high, skirt, but not too short, because heaven help me, there are so many goddamn rules for women. I can't count them anymore, especially in the corporate world and how we're supposed to be deemed professional. So if I do all those things, and I step into the interview, or I step into the courtroom, or in front of the classroom, or in front of the legislature, all of a sudden I am granted a level of respect. I am granted a level of understanding. People quiet when I speak. People give me so much freedom in order to talk, in order to convince, in order to share my opinion. I already have such a step up. Well, that's dangerous, don't you think? Don't you think it's a little dangerous when we as a culture grant these wolves in sheep clothing, let's say, because they're all sheep, really? So I think, is the wolf the bad thing? They dress up as sheep. All the wolves dress up as sheep to pretend to conform, to pretend to buy in. And all the while they are using their pretense of conformity to take advantage of the lull that we've been droned into. You get all of these politicians, all of these people in different positions of power that are dressing the right way, that are never challenged for their aesthetic or their associations or their political beliefs. And all of a sudden they step into the room and we shut the hell up and we listen. That's a lot of credit you just gave them. You open the gates wide to let in whatever narcissistic, manipulative, individual that can want to walk through that door. They know how to play the game. They know the suit to wear. Why do you think there's all these political sort of people around a candidate who are like, well, you gotta roll up your sleeves, but not too high. You gotta take off your jacket at this moment. Your shoes should be new, but not too new, with a little bit of a scuff, but not too much scuff, because too much scuff is gonna say that you can't afford a new shoe. Guys, all of that is to play with your head on purpose. Don't you want to get it out of your head? Don't you want to rip it from your consciousness? Don't you want to be in charge of actually listening to what people have to say rather than forming an instinctual opinion based on your years of oppression, based on your years of indoctrination that you don't even know has been shoved into your head without your consent? Don't you want freedom? Isn't that what you want? And I think people do want this, because heaven help us, people do want this. And that's why we've ended up with guys like Trump, Doug Ford, even to some degree Pierre Polyev, which is hysterical because he's really chained it from, if you've noticed about Mr. Polyev, he went from glasses, hair over to the side, quiet, the right blue suit, to the guy who's all of a sudden has contacts, his hair a little bit further up, his jacket off with a tighter t-shirt. He's hit the gym a little bit, and all of a sudden he's eating an apple talking to a reporter, and we are in awe. Well, I'll tell you why, because I think subconsciously, we're real tired of listening to that pretense rather than authentically getting people that wear whatever the hell they want to wear and speak how they speak and are honest about it and wear the Letterman's jacket. We now are listening to the Trumps, the Pierres, the Fords, who have been conditioned, who have been shaped, who have given us the pretense. Let me say that again. The pretense of authenticity. Every time Trump tweeted when he was allowed to tweet and he spelt something wrong or he got grammar wrong, he gained in popularity. Why do you think that is? Do you think he really spelt something wrong? Do you think nobody's checking? Or do you think you spell something wrong, you get grammar a little bit off, and all of a sudden you give the pretense that you're just one of us? One of the good old down, hardworking Americans that doesn't give a crap between you and you are and your? You don't think it's a play? Of course it is. Trump's even said out loud, I love stupid people. They're all going to vote for me. Listen, and it's because we are living in this world where what we see gets to gear what we think. Everybody said that TV changed politics. Well, God, it changed everything, didn't it? Changed everything. Everybody that watched the JFK-Nixon debate on TV, everybody, Republican and Democrat alike, said Nixon won. Everybody watched said JFK. Watching TV, JFK won. Listening to the radio, Nixon won. Why is that? Why is that? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the color of his shirt and the tan on his skin and the way that he looked at the camera as opposed to the way Nixon looked at Kennedy was a manipulation from start to finish. And a manipulation that we fell for and we continue to fall for. Now, what I find fascinating about today is the internet's a whole other line of that. And the internet's a whole other line, and here's why. Because we are inundated with information that it is very difficult to siphon through what's true, what's not true, what has value, what doesn't have value. And it's funny because a lot of people would say, well, this is a better informational age, which is true. But what ends up really happening is whatever instantaneous thought you had in your head, whatever that stereotype you have deep in your soul that has been jammed in there, all you do, unless we purposefully do against this, all you do is use the internet to feed and bolster and support that belief. That's all we do. So we believe something, and now we have the world of the World Wide Web at our disposal to look at all of it and utilize it to bolster that gut feeling I always had anyways. How do I prove my gut feeling? Nobody ever questions why you have that gut feeling. Nobody ever questions where you were born, who raised you, what were the influence, what socialized you, what indoctrinated you, what brainwashed you, what limited you. Nobody asks any of those questions because those are painful, tiring, exhausting questions. By the way, that's where real education is. And that's why to leave your home and go to school is important. That's why to leave your town and travel the world is important. That's why to immerse yourself in other cultures and religions and languages is important. Putting yourself in different circumstance all over this world is important. Want to know why? Because the stereotypes and the prejudice fade the hell away. They fade away because you're smarter than them now. You're so aware that the indoctrination of your 5-10-year-old self doesn't hold a candle to what you've now experienced. But if you're going to stay at home and you're going to keep your blinders on and you're only ever going to go to the same Walmart and you're going to go to the same website for your news and you're going to believe A and you're going to believe B because that's your gut feeling, you are going to lose. You're going to lose everything. You're going to lose progress. You're going to lose enlightenment. You're going to lose every piece that is called real education that is out there. And as a result, we all lose, by the way. It's not just you, it's me. It's all of us. All of us are going to lose bigger if we don't fight the feeling that's in our gut, talk to more people, travel more, listen, and stop judging the Letterman's jacket. Stop giving credit where credit has not been earned. Stop giving respect where respect should not exist. I don't respect people I don't know. I can give the option of respect, but true respect, true acceptance comes with understanding and becoming educated and aware of who that person is. There's horrible people out there. I'm not respecting them. No, thank you. You say things, you do things, you stand for things that are disgusting and destructive and violent. Why would I respect you? We don't respect everybody. I give space for you to earn that respect. And I try to earn it with how I handle myself and how I stand in the conversations I'm willing to have. But if you look at me and discard what I have to say, or you look at somebody else and give them the power to tell you who you are, what you think, and how you feel because they have on the right suit, we lose. It's a hard one to fight. It's exceptionally hard and it's nuanced. And don't think for a second that just because I'm speaking on it, I never fall into the trap. Of course I do. Of course I do. But don't you dare say that you're above it. Stop it. Stop it. Don't you dare say that you're so highly evolved that never was allowed to infiltrate. 75% of who you are was set by the age of 5. Do you even remember being 5? Do you remember what was set around your Christmas table? Do you remember what was said in your elementary and your preschools? Do you remember what your brothers and sisters did? You might have some memories, but you don't know. And all of that is the foundation of who you are. And no matter who you are, no matter what environment you were grown up, you were raised in, we all of us have to acknowledge there was stuff shoved in our head without our consent, and therein lies the prejudice and the stereotypes and the absolute disregard for the beauty, individuality, and diversity that humanity has to offer. But you can't stop there. You can't stop there. You can't say there's diversity out there. You got to go find it. You got to go immerse yourself in it. You got to go looking for it at every chance you go to. And if you're in the majority culture, by the by, you got to look harder. Because you can very comfortably sit in the same culture that reinforces the same mindset for your entire life. You want to be that person? I don't know if I can help you. You want to be better? You got to push yourself into uncomfortable scenarios to understand more, to become more aware. That's your job. living in the majority culture. Period. Minorities tend to understand it bigger. Why? Because they understand their culture, but they already obviously understand the majority culture because it's shoved down their throat. Of course they get it. Of course they do. And that's not nefarious. That's not like this horrible. It's just the way it works, guys. But don't you dare sit at home thinking you read a book once and you're good to go because you're colorblind, because you judge everybody individually, because you would never ever be driven by stereotype or prejudice, because you would never judge an individual by the way they look before hearing what they have to say. Stop it. Admit it's human nature. Admit it's not the best of us. And admit that we are smart enough, we are brave enough, we are empathetic enough if we allow ourselves to be, to fight the lesser parts of our base nature, because that's the only way anything ever gets better. And on that note, I'm going to go pick out a new Letterman's jacket to wear to school tomorrow. You guys pick out something a little bit different for Wednesday. Do me a favor, just to see how people react to you. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Same bat time, same bat station. Dismissed.